Okay, this is another reaction video. This is from Passport 2, 6 differences you didn't know exist. Germany versus the USA. Well, let's see what these are. I've done a number of these. Now we'll do another one. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Passport 2 as well as down here for me. I would appreciate it. 6 differences you didn't know exist. Germany versus USA.
When people travel the world, they are often confronted by different cultures, different ways of doing things, various perspectives that can really make them reconsider everything that they know, everything they have ever been taught, everything about their own culture. But that is not what this video is about. This video is going to be about 6 very basic day-to-day differences between the USA and Germany that do not mean anything, are completely trivial, but we find very interesting that these differences even exist. Welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, I am Donnie and this is my wife Aubrey. We are 2 American expats living in Germany and exploring all over, and we're going to jump right into today's topic.
One special thing that I've really been wanting to have to remember our time here in Germany are some local German cookbooks. So Donnie was so sweet and for my birthday got me a bunch of really beautiful German cookbooks. And so I wanted to display them on a table. And so I started stacking them all up. But then I realized that on the spine of one of them, the text was written upside down. And so I got really frustrated. And then as I started looking through my books a little bit more, I realized the words on all of the spines were upside down when I had them face up on a table.
That's different. That is not a big deal, but can be a big deal.
That's what we learned, that German books write their text on the spine from bottom to top, whereas American books write their text on the books from top to bottom. So, in American books, when it's laying face up, you can read the text. But in German books, when it's face up, it's upside down.
As I was trying to research online for the reasons behind the direction of text on the spine of a book in both countries, I really couldn't find any answers, and all I really came across were different forums of essentially librarians studying what was the superior way of doing it. And I also did think I found that the top to bottom approach is the older version, and the bottom to top approach is a newer, more modern approach, even though it's still a very old practice.
But it's kind of a strange thing to do, because if you're doing top to, you're using your head to read what's the book is about, isn't it? I mean, it would make more sense to do it from top to bottom.
What it really comes down to is the way that you're going to store your books. If you're going to store your books standing up in a bookshelf, the German way of bottom to top really is the superior way, completely coming down to the ergonomics of looking at books on a shelf. So whenever you see a book on a shelf and you are looking at the spine, you will turn your head to the left to look at the text on a German book to read it from the bottom to the top. And therefore, whenever you pull the book out, the cover will actually be facing you already, and you can simply slide it out and then slide it back in if it's not what you want. Versus with the American spine, you have to turn your head to the right, and you'll be reading the text from the top to the bottom. And if you slide the book out to see it, you'll be looking at the back cover. You'll then have to turn it completely around to see the cover.
Yeah, I don't know so much about that. I mean, I think you'd still do it the same way. I mean, I understand we have a demonstration here, but still looks better the way the Americans do it, top to bottom.
Turn it completely back around and you want to slide it back into the shelf, making it a less desirable way of looking at books. It's also interesting, as a side note, to see the study of how this affects tendencies of people from different countries and the way they will turn their heads for different situations, because a lot of us will default to what feels natural. And a lot of us have looked through books on shelves, and so therefore we have a natural tendency to turn our head whichever direction the text on a spine goes. The other way of storing a book, laying it down flat on a table, proves that the American spine is actually more superior than the German one, because whenever you do that, you can read the text from left to right, upright, and the cover.
Yeah, again, it makes more sense to do it the American way than the German way, in my opinion. But okay, again, look, different strokes, different folks. I mean, it is what it is.
Cover is facing up on the American book versus the German one. At the end of the day, these are very trivial matters. I did way too much research into this topic, but there is that difference. I will also note that this isn't specifically a German versus American difference. Different countries do it different ways, and that's just how they happen to do it in these two countries. The only non-trivial issue that this actually causes is whenever you're trying to organize your bookshelf with book standing with books from both countries, you end up creating an OCD nightmare with some going in one direction and the other going the other.
Yeah, I can see where that would be a problem, but it's not too bad. It's not the end of the world.
As we've been out and about in Germany, it has seemed like no one around us is married because we're not seeing anybody with wedding rings on their left ring finger. But we've learned that's another difference, is that generally Americans have wedding rings on their left ring finger, but Germans will wear them generally on their right ring finger. The tradition of wearing a wedding ring on your left ring finger is thought to have been started by the Egyptians, who thought that there was a vein in your left ring finger that connected all the way to your heart. The Romans also had this idea, and they called this vein the vein of... But this is proven...
Well, that's another difference is, where you have your ring finger on. I don't think it's the end of the world one way or the other. But yeah, it is one thing that you have to wear it on the right-hand side versus the left. I mean, that's to each their own. That's Americans. You can tell an American they usually wear their ring fingers on the left-hand side.
To be not true at all. All your vasculature to your fingers is all the same, but it's a sweet thought. In Germany, it is traditional to wear the engagement ring on the left ring finger, but then after the wedding ceremony to switch it to the right ring finger to signify the change in social status. The differences continue with the appearance of the wedding bands. In Germany, typically men and women will both wear a solid metal band on their right ring finger, but in the US, the bands are usually more elaborate, including diamonds, different kinds of metals, and different designs.
Looks like we're going to ties now.
In keeping with the theme of fashion, our next difference is something that a viewer actually pointed out to us, and I did not believe it whenever I initially read it. And it is so subtle that you really probably don't even know this exists unless you're really into fashion, and it even almost got a US president in trouble, and that is the stripe direction of diagonal stripes on ties. In the US, it is traditionally fashionable to wear diagonal stripes on a tie from your right shoulder down towards your left hip, and in Germany you will find stripes on ties that go from your left shoulder down to your right hip. This actually isn't necessarily a German thing per se. In fact, this actually started in England, and it all started by the way that the military slung their rifles across their bodies from their left shoulder, across their heart, and then down to their right hip. And in the US military wore their rifle slings from their right shoulder down to their left hip, and somehow that ended up in fashion and completely determining the direction of...
Again, that's one of those things that's like one of those who cares. Why would that be a big deal? Well, who cares which way the tie is going? But I guess it does mean something in Germany.
Stripes on ties in those respective countries. Since then, the stripe direction from the left shoulder down to the waist has been dubbed the European style, and the stripe direction from the right shoulder down to the waist has been dubbed the American style. And to prove this, I have a diagonal stripe tie that I had bought in the United States and brought with me whenever we moved here, and you can see the stripes do go from the right shoulder down to the waist. Yeah. And I had to go to some stores here in Germany just to verify this is actually true, and every single diagonal stripe tie that I found went from the left shoulder down to the waist. It is something that I couldn't believe in this interconnected world and fashion world that it actually holds true. And so I bought a European style tie that shows the stripes going from the left shoulder down to the...
It's one of those things that really you don't pay much attention to and really don't care a whole lot about. At least I don't, how you wear your tie, but it is what it is.
The waist in the opposite direction. And I had mentioned that this almost got a U.S. president in trouble one time. One time, President Barack Obama and his vice president, Joe Biden, came out in almost identical outfits and suits and ties until everybody noticed there was something off about the ties. And they noticed that President Obama was actually wearing a European-style ties.
Yep, and Biden was wearing an American tie.
And naturally, as politics go, everybody freaked out, wondering why is an American president not wearing an American-style tie. Still, a ridiculous difference, but it's subtle, and it just blows my... my mind that this is actually a real thing. And so to keep up my investigation on it, if this is completely always true, I want you all to go check your ties and tell me if you live in Germany or if you live in Europe, what direction does your diagonals go? And if you live in the US, what direction do your diagonals go?
Yeah, mine goes to the right to the left, not the left to the right.
We recently did a video on the amazing bread culture here in Germany, and through the comments left by a lot of Germans, we learned another subtle difference related to the vocabulary about bread. In the US, this is toast, but in Germany, this is toast. In the US, toast is bread that has been toasted. In Germany, toast is sliced up bread, even if it hasn't actually been toasted yet.
Yeah, this is interesting about the bread culture in Germany versus the bread culture in the United States. The bread culture in Germany is so much bigger and so much better than the United States could ever dream of. You know, bread is just bread. It's just a loaf of bread. But in Germany, there's a whole slew of different types of bread that is really, really good.
Yeah. We are assuming this is because Germans have such an amazing variety of bread that to call this American-style sliced bread bread would almost be insulting. So they call it toast because that's the only thing that they use this bread for.
This isn't the difference that we were talking about today, but gasoline in Germany is so expensive.
I'm guessing that's probably because you don't use your car a whole lot in Germany. I'm guessing that's what it is. Because when I was in Germany, at least when I getting around, you had the trains and, public transportation. People walk, people use bicycles, things like that. But I'm guessing that's really what it's all about when it came to gasoline. Because it's not a whole lot of people drove in Germany that I saw.
I did the math and I found that we were paying about 3.5 times more for gas here in our village than what we were paying in our state in the United States. But the difference that I do want to talk about is the way that you pay for the gas here in Germany versus in the US. In the US, you will pull up to the pump and then you have to pay before you actually fill up your vehicle. So you'll either put your card in and then you will fill up and your card will be charged for how much gas you took, or before you fill up, you have to go side and tell the clerk how much money you want on your.
Yeah, and in the United States, you use your card at the pump and you put it in there, and it says go ahead, and then you fill it up however much you want, and then whatever that is, that's what your card gets charged. Or you go in and say $10 on pump number 3, and then you fill it up. Unless you're in New Jersey, where they have full service, where somebody else at the gas station has to pump the gas for you. In which case you give them a card and tell them how much you want, or tell them how much you want in there, then you give them a card and pay for it that way.
Your pump before you actually fill up. In Germany, you pull up to the pump and you fill up your car first, and then you generally go inside to the clerk and pay for the gas that you've already pumped into your vehicle. This is how it also used to be done in the US, but generally now whenever you pull up to a pump, you'll find some sort of sticker that will say something along the lines of, due to an increased rate of fuel-related theft, please enter your payment first and then fill up. Which is actually kind of funny that they say due to a recent increase, because ever since I can remember, we've had these stickers, so it clearly isn't that recent that they've been having these issues, but that is why they now have switched to a pay first, then fill up system. In Germany, a study in 2011 showed that there were 85,000 fill up and dashes that occurred in Germany, which was a 6% increase from the previous year in 2010. So according to this semi-outdated information, this is something that is on the rise in Germany, and it would be interesting to see if they start to have to transition to a system like in the US as well to try to stop fuel-related theft.
Yeah, that would be a bad thing if you're going and paying, filling up your tank and then driving off. You might be able to get away with it there in Germany, especially with the price of gasoline being so expensive there.
Another subtle but very important difference is the use of the word not. In German, not means emergency, but in English, not is used to express negation, denial, or refusal. We first noticed this on the train. On the trains, they all have these little glass boxes that have a hammer inside of it, and they're labeled not hammer. And we thought this was really weird because clearly this is a hammer and it says not hammer. But turns out this means emergency hammer because you can use this hammer to...
Okay, that's different. Yeah, not means, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to go there, meaning negative. Yeah, but not hammer means, no, it is a hammer. It's emergency. Okay.
break, I guess, out of the window in case of an emergency. So even as we've been learning more German words, this still trips us up every time because not is such a common English word. So for example, when we're driving down the highway, we'll sometimes see these look like ambulances that say not arts. And so we've learned arts means doctor, but it says not arts. So we think not a doctor.
Emergency doctor is what that means. So not emergency doctor, emergency medical.
But it actually means emergency doctor. Another example is the word Ausgang, which means an exit from a building. So sometimes we'll see signs that say not Ausgang, and we think, oh, that's not an exit. But then actually it means emergency exit. We've also learned with the word not roof that this doesn't mean to not call this number. This actually means it's an emergency number.
So even though we say these are all trivial differences, it does make me ask the questions of what greater cultural implications do these minute differences have, the way that we tilt our heads or the way that we feel off balance because of the direction of the diagonals on our ties. It all creates very interesting questions, and we want to ask you, what other trivial differences do you know between Germany and the United States? Leave those in the comments, and also, as usual, leave them in German so I can practice my German more. I've really appreciated that. If you like this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe so you can keep up with more of our adventures. We would love to have you travel with us.
Tschüss!
Okay, this was 6 differences you didn't know exist Germany versus USA. This is an older video by them, which is pretty good, pretty interesting. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Passport 2 as well as down here for me. I would appreciate it. And, interesting things you didn't know.